Hi,
do it.
guys. Welcome to TEDx Hub biweekly hangout. Feels like we haven't done this in a while, even though we have. This is a repeat offender. This is Betsy Scolnik, a crucial, super important member of the TEDWomen team and of TED staff, also instrumental in the curation aspect of TEDWomen, which I know will give her some exciting conversations today. And she's also she's going to tell us a bit about TEDWomen, about curation, and she might even drop a few speaker names for 2019. And so I'm really excited about it. And so as a reminder, everyone, you've already muted your mics, but if you were feeling really chatty, there's definitely going to be a conversation after Betsy kind of goes through a few points that she wanted to make. So we'll definitely make this an interactive session. And so if you would like to share your screens, we would love to see you. And so I'm going to kick it over to Betsy at this point. So please, guys, don't be shy and let us see you. Thanks, Betsy.
Hi, everybody. It is very nice to see some of you, or at least see your names again. And thank you for being interested in TEDWomen. Amanda knows this, but TEDWomen is so dear to my heart, mostly because of all of you. I've been involved in TEDWomen since 2010, the very first one. And I think what makes TEDWomen special and makes it different than other, women's conferences and other conferences in general is all of you, because you have been instrumental in taking the messages and the ideas and not only spreading them around, but you act on them, which is very, very cool. And we're very appreciative. Much of what I want to talk about today is about action and ideas, how we can turn ideas into action from TEDWomen. So here's what I thought I would do, but if there's anything that you'd like to talk about that I'm not going to cover, just go ahead and send us, something in the chat and we'll make sure we talk about it. Nothing is off base. If I feel like I can't tell you something, I'll just tell you that truthfully. I am going to tell you some names of some of our speakers. And so just as a reminder for everyone, none of that is public knowledge. We have not let any of the speakers even, tell their friends on social media or anything else. So please keep it confidential. We trust you, but we just wanted to remind you. So first off, I thought what I would do is talk about our theme. So this year we did something very different than we've done in the past. And actually it's very different for all of the TED conferences. We polled the community, and I think some of you even got those emails. Basically, any person or any organizer who had connected to TEDWomen 2 or more times in the past, we sent an email out and we said, what are you interested in hearing about? We got almost 350 emails from all of you about what you're interested in hearing about. A lot of those emails focused on the issues that I think we're all familiar with that women face around the world. But a lot of those really came back to be very interesting and very connected. We got a lot of answers like, I wish I could figure out how to be a better mom, a better partner. I wish that I knew how to make a difference in the world in a more impactful way. I often find myself too busy. I often find myself feeling like I'm not using my time well. But basically, what we kept hearing is everyone feels very focused on time, whether it's I don't have enough time to be the things I want to be, I don't have enough time to do the things I want to do, but also a little bit of frustration about how time passes and things don't change. So that is why we came up with a theme. It's about time. And you can think of that in different ways you want to accent that sentence. It can be, it's about time. Let's talk about time, talk about how much we have in a day, how we can save it, how we can use it better. But it's also kind of that finger waving thing of, it's about time. It's about time we make certain changes in the world. It's about time that certain things stop happening to women, to our children, to communities, whatever it is. So we took that as our theme and started building around that about what we would really do with time. So as you guys know, some of you may have attended my curation session. What we do after that is we kind of decide how would we break that up into groups of kinds of talks that are loosely tied together. So what I thought I would do is give you a little bit of an overview of each of our sessions. Now, right now, I'm going to give you the sessions in the order that they are currently slotted to happen, because I know You'll have to select a session to stream live. I want to be honest, though, some of this will change around. And what I will do is I will keep you posted. It'll all be locked within the next 30 days, but this is where it sits now. So if it helps you in planning, or if you have any questions about it, go ahead and ask me. So our first session, and this is a name of the session that we are not necessarily married to yet. So if you have a suggestion of a better name related to time, let me know. This session is loosely tied to things about time that are related to our bodies. And what does that mean? So in that session, we have different kinds of speakers like a neuroscientist who's going to talk to us about the science of our body clocks and how our bodies actually deal with time. Most people in the world think about their body clocks in a very inaccurate way. And I will only tell you right now that this scientist tells me that this idea that we can fool our body clocks, and I know all of you travel all over and do different things, is a lie. You cannot lie to your body clock. So you're going to learn a lot from her. Also in that session, we have people who are talking about it's about time kind of things with our bodies. Things like breast milk and the issues around breast milk around the globe. Things like girls and sexuality and our bodies. So that's one of our sessions, and we're currently calling it Body Time. But if you have a better idea, we're not in love with that name for the session theme. So if you think of something, let me know. Our second session is currently slotted to be a session we call Time's Up. And what we mean by that is these are things that we feel time is up. It's about time that something happens here. The time is up to address these things. This is a session that is very much about things like violence against women, things like the intersection of race and violence across the globe, things like the intersectionality of bullying and how that affects people across the globe. So this is a session about things that we are frustrated with. Time's up. We're tired about it. And you'll hear from some amazing people in this session that have some very new ideas, but also some very bold and loud ideas. And in a minute, I'm going to give you some speaker names, but just bear with me. Our third session is currently slotted, and we're calling it Together Time. So as some of you know, every so often at TEDWomen, we mix up the format and we do things a little differently than happen on the TED stage in Vancouver. This will be an entire session of duets. So these are people who are either partners in life, partners in business, partners in science, partners in discoveries, but these are duets, really interesting groups of people. And they're really tied together just by that theme of being duets. This is an amazing session. We have people in this session everywhere from two people that lived through something that's very difficult. When they were much younger and in college, this gentleman actually raped this woman, and they both hid the fact. Over the course of many, many years, they have both admitted this to one another. They have healed, and they have a lot to say about violence against women. And I think you'll all be blown away by them. I cry every time I talk to them on the phone about their talk. We also have things in this session like a couple of people who have been navigating sexuality in their relationship, in their marriage. One or both of them have decided to change their gender after they have been together for a long time. We have a couple of women who work together, and we have two young girls who have made a large scientific discovery together at the age of 15. So this is an amazing group of duets that I think you will love, but it is loosely tied together really when we call it Together Time, less about time and more about together, just to be open in case you're planning what you want to see. Our fourth session is a lot about media and time. And so we decided to choose a name that everybody kind of knows in the media industry. If you're making a film or you're making a television show or whatever, you always talk about your running time. So we have called this session Running Time. And in this session, we will be revealing some very intense research about the way media is impacting women across the globe. And what I mean by that is how it's impacting us and how we make our decisions through our lives, but also how the world looks at us and the permissions that the world gives us or doesn't give us because of the media. We know an amazing woman who I call our gutsy gal. She uses media to do very extraordinary daredevil things to prove courage. But mostly what she talks about is the difference of how boys usually are raised to take risks and to go out there and, do the crazy things and all of those kinds of things. And girls are often raised to believe that we should be polite and everyone to like us. And what that does in your brain is it makes you have a different paradigm of the way you think and assess risk. And it has resulted in generations of women being averse to risk. And she's going to talk about that. But then just to prove her wrong a little bit with the younger generation, we will have a couple of very young women who are pretty gutsy in the things that they will talk about that they are doing. We also have a man in this session who is going to be talking about the media impact on young men and the generation of young men who in some ways are feeling lost by all of the changes and the spotlight on women. Our fifth session, I'm going to be honest with you, we don't have a title for. We keep trying to think of one, but this session is really about reflections of time, reflections and resilience of different people. Some amazing personal stories in here. We have a woman whose husband was killed as a police officer in the line of duty, and she reflects upon how you actually heal. She talks about how the system all over the world tells you that you're going to feel a lot better and you're going to get through something like that once someone who's guilty is convicted of the death sentence. And what she wants to tell the world is that that didn't help her at all. It didn't make her heal, and it didn't make her feel better. And she wants to talk about what actually does work. And it's very impactful. In that session, we also have a woman from China who has done some extraordinary things in her life in the face of a lot of obstacles. And then a woman from one of the countries in Africa who I love her because one of the things she talks about is how media gives most people in African nations two options. You're either out of the ordinary, which means you're doing something good, and it is portrayed in the media as you being very unique and very rare to do something great if you are from an African nation. Or you're considered incredibly difficult because you're not just conforming to the norms of what people are expecting. And she's going to be, I think, very extraordinary. Our last session we're currently calling the test of time. And these are things that are maybe new in the thoughts in the world, but we think over the test of time, they're going to prove to be very important, whether that be in a good way or in a risky way or a different way. So we have everything in this session from this amazing architect. I believe she is the architect who, a female architect who has designed the tallest building in the world that a female's ever designed. But what she's really going to talk about is the integration of ecology and architecture and why she thinks that's going to have a huge impact on cities across the globe. And she's going to show some incredible results of different things she's worked on. When I see the pictures, it blows my mind. We have a woman who is going to talk about what in some ways I keep calling, it's soul time in many ways, but she was the only match to her sister for a bone marrow transfer. And yet she and her sister did not have a good relationship and didn't really speak to one another. And so they really not only decided to try and create some soul marrow because they felt that their souls needed to be more connected for this transfusion to work, but they also went through the physical work of having that bone marrow transplant. And it's an amazing story that's important to hear. We're going to hear from two women who play very different roles in the military and national security in different parts of the world, and the things that they are doing, which is going to be incredible. We have a young girl who has discovered something that we think is going to have a huge impact on clean water over the course of time. We have a pretty great surprise performance in this one that I can't tell you about, but wow is all I'm going to say as well. So Amanda, stop laughing. I'm not allowed to say that name yet. In fact, I'm not even sure we're going to put it, I'm not sure we're going to put it out even before the conference. But what I did do is I asked our curation team, much closer to the conference, I will be allowed to tell you all, but it will be wow. Let me give you a couple of other names that are going to be in these sessions that I'd love to just tell you about. You all may have heard of Ashley Judd. She is an actress who you've not only seen her incredible acting, which she has won many awards for, but some of you may know that Ashley has been the victim of some of the worst and most violent cyberbullying. And it has continued on her for many, many years to the point of incredible danger. Ashley, many people don't know, is a Harvard graduate. She's a very, very intelligent woman, and she has spent the last number of years working with scientists to better understand digital bullying or online bullying. Most people's attitudes about this is that if you can't take the heat, get out of the fire, right? So if you don't want to be attacked, then turn off. Clearly, that would mean if you have to turn off in order to not be bullied, you're missing out on the greatest communications vehicle and information vehicle in the world. So that's an impossibility and unfair. You shouldn't have to lose out to all kinds of connectivity because someone's bullying you. What she and scientists have been researching, and she will be sharing with you, is the actual physiological impact of cyberbullying. And it turns out that cyberbullying actually impacts your body physically in the brain and in a lot of your fusions and your neurocycles in the exact same way as physical and verbal abuse. And so we can no longer ignore cyberbullying as something that people can avoid because it actually hurts you and has long-standing impact on you. Another speaker, I want to just share some names. There are two gals, Zanella and Ilda from Bosnia. They are Google Science Fair finalists. I don't believe they've announced the final winners yet. I can imagine that they don't win. But Zanella and Ilda are from Bosnia, and what's incredible about them is not just what they discovered. So they discovered a way to create biofuel using chicken feathers. And the way that they did that and how they did that in a country that had no confidence that girls can actually participate in science. They couldn't find a single university to let them use their labs. You will see some pictures of how messed up they made their parents' couches with millions of pounds of chicken feathers. But the end result is that it worked. And they have both been invited to now take those experiments to places like Harvard and Oxford and Stanford and take them further. The other thing I love about these girls, and I think they're going to do this too, they are both concert level musicians. And I think they're going to play together also for us at TEDWomen. They are amazing. Another person that I want to tell you about that you may have read about at some point, I think that she is somewhat of a global name, but she is also a domestic U.S. name. So I apologize if you haven't heard of her before, but her name is Sisonke Mzange. And Sisonke, let me spell her last name for you. Msimang. I don't often say it right, but Sisonke is from South Africa, and she's an amazing activist and woman who talks about generational healing in a country where there have been generations of people who disagree about what has been happening. even though the world has said what happened in South Africa looks fantastic, there's a lot that hasn't been fantastic. And as a young person, it's very important for people in her country to get together and understand that they don't have to agree, but they have to drive the country forward together. And she is incredible. So I wanted to tell her about that. And then one that I wasn't supposed to share with you, but I just decided right this minute that I want to share with you is that I don't know if any of you are fans of 80s music. Raise a hand if you love 80s music. I know you do, Amanda. Oh, there you go, Jay. Thank you. Thank you. If you remember Taylor Dayne, she was very famous in the 80s. Taylor is going to do a couple of performances for us. And I'm just so excited because when I get to talk to her, I just have like Love Will Bring You Back and all these crazy songs in my head. So since I just talked to her this morning, I had to share it with someone. So please don't tell on me. I was told not to share her name, but I did. So I wonder if now is a good time to just break and you guys can ask me about some of the sessions or the session themes or things like that before I go into a couple of other things. What I'd like to talk about is one or two ideas of things we'd like to do that would involve you. And I would love to hear your opinion on those, but also if you have ideas of how we can really connect with you during the conference and do things together, that would be great. I also know that this year a number of you will be there, and we want to make sure that you are front and center in the conference. And we have some ideas about how to actually do that, to put you front and center, but I want to make sure you feel comfortable with it and like it. So Amanda, should I sort of go on hold for a second, start answering some questions?
Yeah, you absolutely can. I also just, Jay quickly asked if you're still accepting speaker suggestions or submissions.
We are. We only have about, I want to say 3. So Amanda doesn't know this yet either. We are actually discussing extending the time of our sessions by about 10 or 15 minutes. So I guess one thing I'd love to know is, how do you feel about that? Extending the time of sessions by about 10 to 15 minutes. We just find that we are struggling to get all the greatness into each session along with the great performances. It's totally against the rules. Chris is completely debating with us right now, but how do you feel about, I'd love it if you want to just send me an email, or I know raising hands won't work now, but if our sessions were 10 to 15 minutes longer, would that be a problem for you given your venues or anything that you're working on? We won't do that if we think you don't want us to do that, because you being connected is most important to us. Any thoughts on that initially? Amanda, what about your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, I think it's interesting because in the past, I think one of the reasons that we kept to the length of session that we did was because of TEDx feedback. So I guess this is a great time then for people to say how they feel about that amount of time. Oh my God, it keeps going back to the theme. I definitely think something that TEDxers will have to, let us know.
Yeah, Johanna, I see what you're saying, that it's hard to stay focused for 90 minutes via a screen anyway. So I think you're saying that's going to be a little hard, right? Am I hearing you correctly on that? Jay, what do you think about that? Just because I can see your face, you can give me a nod if you want. Do you think that it's also too difficult to extend the time? I can't hear you.
What's the total length of time you have for the session now?
Oh, I should have said that. I'm sorry, you guys. Our sessions are 90 minutes. That includes all of the performances, all the speakers, any stage transitions, it's everything. The whole session, 90 minutes.
Sometimes we do 100 or 105.
Do you all generally stick to 90? I should have said that before. If you're already doing 100, that's sort of what we were thinking about going to. But I think Johanna actually and Grace are saying 90 is kind of tough as it is. I would just love, Amanda, maybe we can send out a little poll or get some thoughts on that before we make that decision, because I don't want you all to get, Grace, I don't want you all to get, to make it hard for you, but I also know some of you may have already secured venues, and running over time could be a problem. And so one of the main things I wanted to ask you all today is that, because we won't take the decision to run long if the majority of you see that as a problem. So I'm also seeing, okay, so about speakers. We have about 3 slots left. And if it's helpful for you, can I tell you the kinds of speakers we're still really interested in trying to find? Would that be helpful? Okay. So I think every year we find ourselves looking for those few good men who have something interesting to say that is not just theirs. And we have a couple of male speakers that I think are really interesting. One of them is talking about, I think I mentioned, the future of young men, and how a lot of the changes in the world across the globe are impacting male roles, particularly young men, and the issues they face because many of their fathers grew up in just incredibly different times, and they're actually not helpful to helping men find their way. There's also a lot of facts that show us that the role of men, whether it be from education or in the workplace, is changing dramatically as well. And our media hasn't kept up with their reality and then what they see in media. So we have a man talking about that who's an expert in those things, but we have a couple of men who are in our duet session as well. But we do really try to look for men, particularly men who are helping in the violence against women across the globe. One of you, I believe, and I think I got it through Amanda, has sent us a suggestion, and we are actually right now reviewing him, and he is our top candidate to be the speaker. He was a TEDx speaker as well. So if you have any ideas on that, that would be fantastic. I think some other things that we are looking for, we have a couple of things. One is there are obviously some very important things happening in the United States. Now, we know that this is a global conversation, but the impact of what happens in the general election in the United States will have a global impact. There's obviously historic things about it because of women, but there's obviously really some important issues that we face from a civil justice and human justice perspective because of this election. And we're trying to think of a way to have that discussion without being political. As you know, it will be about a week or 2, I think, before that election. We're not a political organization, but Chris has asked us to find a way to have this discussion in some way that will not result in us being political. So we have some different ideas of maybe in our evening program doing some things, but I'm always sad if it's in the evening program and you all aren't connected. So what Pat asked me to share with you is that we're also open to a different format. If it's a discussion, if it is a panel, I have to admit we're not in love with panels. They're kind of boring. But we really want to figure out how to have that discussion because we know that the election in the United States is being talked about on a global level for many reasons, but primarily for a lot of social injustice reasons. So that's something that's on our minds, and we don't feel like we've cracked the code on the right person for that. We've had a lot of submissions, a lot of ideas. For some reason, it's not, we're not finding anyone that we really, really, really love. And I guess the other thing that we're always interested in are just amazing personal stories of resilience, either women or men and women together as well. We have a lot of, this year for the first time, a lot of scientists and a lot more science and design than we've had in the past. And I think you all have often loved our stories of resilience. And in the past, you have sent us some of the best ones. So if you have any of those. Anything else? I'm just looking really quickly now as I was talking. I wasn't looking at your questions, but does that help you in kind of thinking about who to send to us? Excellent. But you you guys have a lot of influence on Pat and I. So if there's something that you think we haven't covered as I've gone through this that you're interested in hearing about, or if there's a particular person you're interested in hearing from that you think we might be able to reach, I'm always interested. Please don't say Oprah again, because every year we get like so many people who say we want to hear from Oprah. And, it's not that Pat doesn't know Oprah. It's just we feel like everyone hears from Oprah all the time. So if there's anyone else other than Oprah that you'd like to hear from, we would like to know about it as well. All right, so from there, if you're okay, does everyone still have enough time? I'd like to talk to you about some things we would like to do and include you in, but we don't want to plan for those without some input. And again, if you don't want to send me your input now or we run out of time, you can always send Amanda an email or me an email, but I really very much want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, violence against women is something that you have all sent us ideas about. I think many of you have covered this topic in your TEDxWomen sessions as well. It is not getting better across the globe. It's actually getting worse. Recently in the United States, there was a very high-profile case about this where obviously the violence against the woman was awful, but the awful thing about it as well is that in a developed country where we are seen as having stronger laws about these things, our court system did not give the offender a very harsh penalty. And so this young man who raped a girl on campus at a university, and by the way, across the globe, the largest amount of women who have violence against them in one location happen to be at universities, colleges, and schools, places where people are supposed to feel safe. And this gentleman was given a sentence to go to jail of less time than some people serve for white-collar crimes and things that have not even hurt another person. The woman who was attacked does not want her identity to be known, but she wrote a very public letter to the world. And it's gotten some attention in the United States, but it's a very important letter. One of the things we thought about doing, there was a famous actress and a group of girls who are survivors have offered to come to TEDWomen and read the letter together on stage with some famous voices and faces. And we thought it might be very impactful to be doing that across the globe together in solidarity. No one should have a crime like that committed against them and then have to watch the criminal who did that not pay a price. And we thought it would be something that we could do in solidarity together and read at different times across the globe together. And we're wondering if you'd be willing to participate in that, or if you even thought that was a good idea. Because we think that if you do that across the globe, it will continue to get the attention it deserves so that this never happens again. So I'm curious, I'm looking now to see if you have any thoughts. I'm very open to you being very honest. If you feel that it's too domestic US, if you feel you don't feel comfortable doing that, all of those things are important to us. I'm not sure if we will do it or not, but we are compelled to do it. But we felt like it would be more powerful for the world to see all of us in solidarity doing this together. So it'd be great. Yes, I agree with whoever just sent that. We are inviting young girls to also be readers. They'll be on the stage. More than likely, it will only be one or two faces you'll recognize. And then our hope is that it'll be faces of survivors and girls that maybe you don't recognize, but that you stand with, and your faces too, that are helping us do this. Thank you, Grace. But do you feel like that's something, you can send me your thoughts on that. The other thing is we would very much like, a number of years ago, and I don't know how many of you participated then, we did live interactive polls during TEDWomen where some of our speakers, but also some of you decided, what do you want to know how everyone is thinking about something across the globe? It's very rare that there's a statistically relevant opportunity of people on every continent to respond to the same thing at the same time. That kind of data is something that you can put out to the press or in social media locally. And the way that we would do it is we could have all of the results happen automatically, that you would have access to in a pie chart, in a graph, or in a different kind of graphical representation. So you can have it happening locally as well. We would love to do a couple of more poll questions like that. As always with TEDWomen, there are going to be some talks that are mind-blowing, that are going to bring up some really different things, and some high emotion and some pretty strong thought. And we thought it might be interesting also to get global thoughts on these issues real time as people are thinking about them from a conversational perspective. So I'm wondering, the way that that works, just so you know, is it's a simple text number that a person can send. It's a local text number, so it's not like we're asking people to call internationally. They can also do their results online on a website. So we're not asking anyone to make international calls or international texts to do this. It's a simple text, or you can do it online. It's not something you have to make any technology available for. If you want to display the results real time, it'll be available literally in a web link. So you can flash it up on a live screen, or you can capture it in a screenshot and share it during a session, but you'll have access to it as well. I'm just looking to see what you all think. I'm looking at what you're saying. Thank you, Grace. But I would love to hear, if anyone's on this call that was involved, I think it was in 2011 when we did this, what did you think? That would be kind of nice too. Jay, I see you shaking your head. Was that fun for you guys to do as well when we did it? You're going to type? Okay. Well, maybe we just
Sorry,
lost
we
you.
didn't participate in that session, so.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I think there are always ways to make whatever is being discussed relevant and connected to you locally, I think. So I don't see that as a problem.
Excellent. And then I guess last but not least, if there's something, one more thing. We are thinking about one evening, and this was actually an idea, I think, Amanda, that you came up with, and we really loved it. For the organizers that are going to be there, we were actually thinking of focusing one of our meals on the opportunity for you to host a table on an idea that you want to talk about, an idea going into action. Our TEDWomen community that is primarily based in the US, the physical community, they've asked many times, how can we take action? How can we get to know the organizers and help them? How can we help fund their actions or participate or volunteer in their actions? And one of the ideas we had was to actually give you each a table at a meal to have people come and talk about your idea into action that you'd like to share. So that might feel like a lot of pressure. I don't know. We thought it sounded like a lot of fun and also a great opportunity for you to connect to the women that are there, because it's been the first time that so many of you will be at TEDWomen. So if that's of interest, I would love to know. But we'd also like to know any ideas you have. How would you like to connect? You know, we're always going to shout out to you all on stage. We're always going to be referencing you. But is there anything else we can do to make you feel more connected to us throughout the conference? We would love those ideas. So for people who are not going to be live, you can still use the poll. So we will keep the poll active for you to use that. Amanda, forgive me, I forget, is it 7 or 10 days that those are still up?
It's usually a week. It's a week.
Yeah. So we'll keep the poll live for you so that your results will be added to it. but also you'll have the existing results from everyone else for those of you who may not be live. Yeah, I know. For those of you who can't come, I get that as well. And we always wonder, how do we get your ideas into action as well? So we definitely want to hear about that. Oh, Jay, that's a cool idea. George Takei. Well, everyone loves George Takei, so it's not hard to want to have him talk. That's interesting. I didn't see that talk. I should look at it and see what that would mean, and if he would want to do that. Yes, he would pull it off with limited rehearsal, but we're not too worried.
When he spoke at TEDx Kyoto, the key was to get him to focus and not talk about too many things, which he did after a few suggestions. But his talk was all about the internment. But in fact, he mentions, he talks about being an American and how his father taught him the importance of democracy. And in the end, he talks about why he still loves his country, despite the fact that they put him, when he was 4 years old, into a prison. But the talk really isn't about that. But now with the shooting in Orlando and the treatment of Syrians and Muslim refugees, I think he could probably have a whole new slant on that. And he's been doing a little bit on social media about it recently. So anyway, just a suggestion.
That's an interesting one. And I think it's super relevant to the U.S. election as well, and the different types of candidates that are out there. Yeah, I think everyone agrees with you that it would be interesting. You just mentioned something that I think we're also interested in having more talks on. We already have some talks related to it, but I think anything around those intersections of race, refugees, all of those things. Social injustice is big on our minds, and one of our sessions, as I said, our Time's Up session, is almost completely dedicated and focused on different social injustices. I think everyone around the world sees injustice to women as a broader injustice. And so there's a lot of that, but we are always interested in more talks about that as well. Go ahead, Grace.
Just one of the ways that we're hoping to tackle this issue is to have a speaker. We're working with a speaker right now to talk about oneness, about how we're all the same. Where we all feel that we're different because of race, gender, etc. But actually, she's trying to find a way to sculpt the talk so that we boil it down to the fact that we're, 75% water and 11% carbon, etc. Just to show that we're all the same, and we're feeling increasingly more divided. But to look at it from another perspective. So that's kind of how we're trying to mitigate a lot of what's happening in the world right now.
I really like the idea of oneness. I like that idea. And I think that fits in a number of our sessions. So I like the idea of oneness and that we're not different from one another. We're trying very hard this year. You'll see that everyone on stage is going to look very different from one another, whether it's a performer or a speaker, so that we're preaching that by our actions as well. We all do feel like we are one. So that's a great idea. And if you want to share with me your speaker, maybe we can mention your speaker during that session too, especially if that's the session you want to stream live. And that would be, I think for you, that would be our second session now, the one that we're calling Time's Up, might be the most interesting to you. But there are a couple of sessions, given time zones and things, that you'll see a lot of that. Session 2 is very full of that concept and that idea. And I think session 5, the one that we're calling Reflections of Time, don't forget, we hate that name. So if you have a better one, please send it to us. But in session 5, one of the things we have a woman whose family member was murdered just because of race and what that means.
Can I just circle back to the sexual assault talk? You were asking about whether we would read out a statement. I think what could be very powerful for us is if we had our speaker on sexual assault, then followed by a short snippet of the video from TEDWomen of all of these. You were talking about well-known women read out the statement. I think that could work really, really well. I think that would be very powerful.
Let me make sure I understood what your suggestion is. I think your suggestion comes from the fact that if not everyone is live, if we could get the video of the various people who read at our live event out to you quickly, you could reuse that. So not necessarily just a part of the session, but maybe just a separate quick video of just that particular thing. So you could use it later. Am I understanding you right?
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. And I think we would absolutely be willing to do that. But one of the other things I like that you said is if you have a speaker who's going to be speaking on sexual assault, I wonder if we could have you all have that person maybe read that a section or read the whole letter, and we could bring their face and their voice into the live reading as well. Maybe they're on screen or something like that so that they become a part of that video that gets distributed to everyone. Am I making sense? And what do you think of that idea?
So our event occurs on the Saturday. So are you suggesting that we tape her ahead of time reading that statement?
Yes. So it's a very
because we have rehearsal, so we could tape her and then send that out to you.
I think that would be amazing. And if anyone else is interested in that, it would be great to let me know, and we'll work with you to do that, because it would be so lovely to have you all represented during the live as well. You know, so it's a very long letter. So what we're going to do is have people read one or two sentences going back in between. It would be natural to have a voice on a screen say two sentences and then a live person. I think we can produce that beautifully, and it would be so wonderful to have your voices and faces. And Amanda, I think the polling, yes, we should definitely poll around that discussion and that session. I agree.
So would we, does she need to be on stage when she actually reads it, or can she just read it from anywhere?
I think she can read it from anywhere. I mean, it would be nice if it weren't like in her kitchen, like maybe you could have her stand up against a beautiful wall, or to be honest with you, if she has a statement or anything she wants to have behind her, I think that's could be interesting as well. You know, just no background that's so busy that it would be hard to cut stuff together, you know, in film. It's just a production note.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Yep. Let's see. Gilda, what are you saying? Oh, and May was about time and space. It's called time lapse. Oh, time lapse is good. Would you be offended if we used time lapse, or are you offering up as a gift? Thank you. Okay. That is way better than, what did I call it? We just don't like it. Yeah, reflections of time. Time lapse is good. And we'll thank you publicly to everyone if we use it. Thank you. Amanda, I'm worried that am I running out of time, or am I okay?
We're running low on time.
Okay. Johanna, okay. So the idea of women in equity, I think you're talking about equity in pay, equity in access to education, equity in the way our time is used. And I think if any of you are familiar with Melinda Gates, she wrote an open letter to the world about time poverty for women. and how time is not, women's time is not compensated because traditionally we have had to do so many things that are not sort of jobs that are paid for. So I think you're thinking of equity of time and of pay. Is that right? All of those things, Johanna? Because I think that's a really important topic, mostly education. Okay. We do have those 3 spots open, and I would say that we are loosely covering equity in education, but if you have a suggested speaker that could talk about that, I think some of you might remember last year, Memory Banda, who spoke about not wanting to be married before her time and wanting to have an education instead. That talk got a lot of attention and made a life-changing difference for her and people in her community. So I think that's a very important topic. If you don't have a suggestion, though, I will take that back to the team and see if we can go back in our list and see if there's someone we feel strongly about. Johanna Catalina spoke, as you know, at TEDWomen before. Do you remember? She's amazing. Oh, I don't know Jeff Pereira, Grace. Do you have a link to his talk handy? You could send it to me. That would be great. You guys want my email. Why don't I type it in? Because my name is kind of obnoxious to spell. Let's see here. You can send it to this. I am really fast on email. I'll respond to you within 24 hours and tell you I got the email, and I'll probably ask you questions about the speaker or the idea. Let me see. Did I spell my name right? Yes. There you go. Please send it to me. Oh, I forgot. You can also send it to me. This might be easier. I'm sorry. Everything goes to this one too. There you go. You can send it to me at betsy@ted.com. That's probably easier. Just send any ideas. So I know I've said a lot of stuff. I talk too much. Amanda's going to tell me I talk too much. But just send me any thoughts you have. Let me quickly, if it's helpful. Again, our sessions are body time. We're talking about how time impacts our bodies and how our bodies impact our time. Include in that things where our bodies are important to us: sexual assault, sexuality, infant mortality, those types of ideas. Our second session is Time's Up. These are things that we are frustrated about. So this is a lot of those equity issues that we've been talking about, as well as sexual violence. Our third session is Together Time. So these are just amazing duets of people. So if you have any amazing duets, to be honest with you, they don't have to be totally related to time. We just love the idea of people that spend time together to make change. Running Time is our fourth session. That's about media, the media's impact on us, but also how we use media to make impact. So there will be people who talk about how they use media to impact things as well. Reflections of Time, which is going to become time lapse, I hope, pretty soon. This is really a session of resilience and how time impacts resilience. For some people it heals, and for some people it doesn't, and how do you heal? And then our last session, session 6, we're currently calling the test of time. And these may be ideas and things that may have not had time yet to prove themselves out, but we believe over the test of time are going to have a big impact. So if any of that, if you have questions or you have ideas for speakers, if you have ideas about how we can connect better to one another, or for sure if you want to participate, if we do this reading of the letter from the woman who was attacked at the University of Stanford, please let us know if you want to participate. We will include you, and that would be our honor. So I think that's it. Any questions, anything before we sign off? Thank you too. Thank you all so much for always making time for me, but also thank you so much for making time for TEDWomen. It's really important, and you are the reason that TEDWomen has impact. We get all caught up in the actual stage performance, but the reality is it doesn't mean anything without you guys spreading the ideas. So thank you. If you want to do this again closer to the time where I can share some more speakers or whatever, or if you want to have any one-on-one conversations, just ask me. Have a great day, night, wherever you are.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Bye.
Jay. Bye-bye.